Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 3. Now let's start the fanfic. Not well, Lord Third, the clan is dead set on their plans. I fear within a year at most they'll revolt. Hiruzen lost his smile. This was serious. He didn't want this to happen. He really truly cared for the Uchiha, no doubt about that. One of his best friends had been an Uchiha. This would only spell disaster for everyone. Anything that we can do. At this stage in the game, I'm doubtful. Hiruzen looked down. However, he looked into Itachi's once more. Shisui told me that if all else had failed, he had a plan. I trust him. Bring him in tomorrow. Hi. Next day, Hokage meeting room. The following day, in the room, when Itachi and Shisui both appeared, they noticed Hiruzen and the village elders. Danzo being to Hiruzen's right, with the other two, Homura and Kaharu, to the left. Thank you for coming. Before we begin, can you please brief the elders on the situation? Shisui and Itachi gave them a rundown on the situation. They looked shocked and worried, except for Danzo. He seemed to have known all along in some way. He couldn't be behind it all, could he? Hiruzen, I've told you from the beginning. The Uchiha are not to be trusted. It was only a matter of time before a coup took place. Danzo, how dare you? Do you forget that one of our closest friends was Kagami Uchiha? Hiruzen said in defense of the Uchiha clan. They are the few versus the many. They truly valued the village over the clan, however, the Uchiha now can't be trusted. We must strike first and take them all out. Danzo retorted. The Uchiha clan needed to go, they were a danger to the hidden left village. Danzo, enough of this. I will not strike a leaf ally. Hiruzen responded with a slightly higher tone and slammed his fist on the desk in front of him. You're too soft, Hiruzen, Danzo said in disgust. Lord Third, if I may, Shisui said, interjected before things could go south. What is it, Shisui? Please tell me you have a plan. Hiruzen almost pleaded to Shisui. Enough, Hiruzen. Don't listen to this Uchiha, and we must strike. Silence. Go ahead, Shisui. Hiruzen ordered with a glare. Shisui's mind went back to his promise to Naruto, and he knew his little brother would be devastated if anything happened to them. I know what you go through, Naruto. I lost my parent at a very young age. I don't even remember them anymore, but you have me, Naruto, and I will do anything to protect my little brother. Shisui gave him a side hug. I can stop the coup. In 5 days, they will gather the clan. I will use my Koto Amatsukami on Fugaku-sama, and he will end the revolt. What? How? Danzo asked with narrowed eyes. My Koto Amatsukami is a special genjutsu, the strongest there is. I can activate on someone and practically control them. I can alter memories or fabricate new ones. I would make him believe that he no longer wants the revolt and plan for peace. He would never know. He would think it's what he always wanted out of his own free will. The entire room gasped in shock. The implications and use of such jutsu were absolutely crazy. This was pretty much the pinnacle of genjutsu. Danzo narrowed his eyes even more as he didn't trust such jutsu in the hands of an Uchiha. Hiruzen gained hope that maybe this could work while the elders were caught in the middle. Itachi looked at Shisui in concern. He knew from what Shisui said what the cost was, and even if that wasn't an issue, it must hurt knowing that you are just controlling somebody to your will. Shisui had his eyes closed as he thought about what he had just suggested, but there was no other choice. This had to be done. Very well, Shisui, I will allow you to do this. Hiruzen agreed with hope in his heart. Perhaps the war could be avoided. Hiruzen, you can't be serious. Enough, Danzo. The third roared, and his ki released, causing uneasy feelings to everyone. Hi. Thank you, Sandaime-sama. Shisui said with a bow from his kneeling position. 5 days. In 5 days, the revolt will be over, and they can be peaceful within the village. Naruto wouldn't have to live through civil war, and he could still have his family. In 5 days, everything could be over, and they can continue being happy together. Itachi, Naruto, Izumi, Hiruzen, they can all be together secured in 5 days. Shisui had thought to take Naruto to live with them once he becomes a genin. He's already strong enough to be a chunin. Shisui and Itachi were walking together and had been silent for a while. They didn't really know how to feel. Things would end in 5 days, but also Shisui would carry the guilt of knowing that he's manipulated someone's mind to his will. Shisui, are you sure? Yes, Itachi. If I do this, the revolt is over. We can live in peace together within the village. Naruto won't have to live through civil war, and we can all be a family, you, Izumi, Naruto. It's for you guys. Shisui. Listen, friend, don't worry, okay. I got this. Shisui said smiling, I'm going to go see Naruto's progress on the genjutsu. See you around, Itachi. If it's for you too. I'll do anything. No matter the cost. 5 days later, Shisui woke up. These 5 days had been tortuous. Despite hiding it as much as possible, his favorite blonde somehow knew he was under pressure. Naruto asked him every day why he was sad and leaving out negative emotions. Shisui, of course, knew of his ability to feel the emotions of others. The Uchiha had tried to surpass them as much as possible, but all that seemed pointless when it came to hiding it from the likes of Naruto. Shisui, of course, had just avoided answering his questions or had tried to change the subject. The Uchiha knew that Naruto could see through his lies, and it hurts to lie to him. 1 hour before clan meeting. Lord Danzo, you wanted to meet me. Danzo stood in front of him and nodded. He looked at him impassively and just internally judged the Uchiha in front of him. How do you know this will work? The genjutsu can't just be broken, and it would only end or change on my choice. Even if I died, the jutsu would remain active. Shisui responded with slightly narrowed eyes. Yes, but what of the other Uchiha? Surely there are many that would revolt regardless. How can you be sure of that? How can you be sure that in the future, the same situation won't happen again? What do you mean? Shisui asked back, his chakra on his foot, ready for anything unexpected. Let's say it works out now. What's to stop the clan in the future from following the same path down the road? It got here once. Even if you stop Fugaku, the generation has already decided to take action. What stops them? Fugaku-sama will. They'll listen to him. I doubt that. As such, I believe I shall take your eyes and keep them in my safekeeping. Danzo lunged at Shisui, trying to take an eye from him. Forgive me. Koto Amatsukami. Shisui began walking away from Danzo when suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in the gut and kicked to the chest out of nowhere. The hell? He saw Danzo appear in front of him, and he was extremely confused at this. He also noticed that he felt strange now, like he was getting weaker and weaker. Danzo came at him again, attempting to get an eye, and Shisui's eyes widened. Danzo came so fast, there was no time. He was about to get his eye when suddenly a green aura came and then threw Danzo back. Susanoo, Shisui said, and the ribcage formed around him, shielding him from Danzo and saving his eyes. He noticed his weakness coming more and more, so he had to flee. He shunsen into the forest. 12 Root Anbu appeared by Danzo. Go get the eyes. Don't him. He won't get far with the poison in his system. Shisui blocked a slash aimed for his neck by Foundation members in a bear mask. He shunsen away again to gain distance, trying his best to maintain his lead. Just now he noticed blood coming out of his stomach wound, when Shisui thought and remembered when Danzo first attacked. A flurry of kunai flew towards him, and he deflected them all with his kunai. Landing on a branch, he was soon forced to shunsen again as a brace of shuriken thudded into the tree. This can't go on. I'll have to take them out. Shisui thought desperately as he returned fire with his own kunai. Another agent rushed at him, engaging Shisui in a fierce taijutsu match with flashing kunai blades. Shisui unsheathed his tanto in a brief battle opening and decapitated the agent who was battling him. An agent wearing a bird mask ambushed him from the left with another kunai, slashing Shisui across his left arm and throwing down a poison bomb as he went. In another shunsen, Shisui stabbed the masked bird agent through the throat, leaving him choking on his blood as Shisui fled. Landing on another branch, Shisui stumbled and fell to the forest floor below as his vision wavered and his legs weakened. He felt shaky and began coughing violently. Shit, I must have inhaled some of that poison. And who knows what exactly was on that kunai blade. The root agents surrounded him again. The captain gestured to his squad, and one by one, they all raised kunai with explosive tags tied to them. Aim for the legs, don't damage anything above the neck. Came the cold-hearted order. His agents nodded, swiftly sending the kunai flying at Shisui from all directions. Boom! A cloud of dust flew up into the air and settled over the forest. The captain gestured to his subordinates, they nodded and separated to search for Shisui's body parts. Suddenly a shower of bright green projectiles thudded into 3 agents. The smoke cleared, revealing a standing Shisui who was engulfed by a giant fiery green humanoid figure in a tengu mask. The figure appeared to have its chest cage opened, ribs on stark display, with a bright red matagama in the middle of its chest. Shisui panted as his Susanoo slowly disappeared from existence, leaving him defenseless once more. One of the agents broke off from the formation and engaged Shisui as the captain, and the last remaining member hung back and started preparing a jutsu together. Unexpectedly, the single agent engaging Shisui fell with a kunai through the back of his neck. One fireball blasted into the remaining root agents, charring them alive, not even leaving time to shout. Shisui, are you okay? A worried shout came from the other side of the clearing. Itachi came running out of the forest towards Shisui, and he hurried to support Shisui as he collapsed. Huff, thanks, men, how did you know I needed help? And sorry for the trouble. You didn't show up in the gathering. I left and sensed that your chakra signature was in distress. I arrived to see your technique disappear, Itachi replied as he hovered over Shisui with a basic diagnostic jutsu. He frowned in worry. Shisui had been poisoned with a fast-acting agent that Itachi doubted anyone aside from Tsunade had the skill to remove. Shisui, you don't have much longer left, but we can go to the hospital. Shisui shook his head. We're going to our spot at the Naka River. There's something I must tell you urgently. He then disappeared in a shunsen. The Naka River was indeed a spectacular sight in the setting sun. The beautiful pink rays of light played off the tops of the trees surrounding the valley of the Naka River, and the water was a beautiful blue that rushed cheerfully along. The river looked like a painting rendered masterfully by a professional artist. Unfortunately, this beautiful sight was lost upon the 2 shinobi that had just arrived. Itachi appeared at the Naka River to a coughing Shisui. Itachi started a basic healing technique on his friend to at least ease the pain. Shisui panted as he looked at Itachi with worried and drawn expressions. He laughed, don't make these worried faces at me. I believe in you to carry on for me in my place. Itachi, the Kotoamatsukami plan has failed. Danzo's root interfered, he doesn't trust me, and he wants my eyes for himself. He will resort to anything to protect the hidden leaf. They'll probably be coming for my eyes again. Itachi stoically watched Shisui remove his own eyes. Holding out a hand to them, please, keep my eyes safe. I believe in you. Itachi, I will be giving you great power, you'll need it in the coming days. Please protect Konoha in my stead. Itachi gasped. Shisui. You can't. Shisui patted Itachi on the shoulder. I'm not going to last much longer anyway. Take it as my dying wish. As he started coughing blood, his palm on his mouth filled with blood and dripping on the grass. Speechless, Itachi could only gaze at his friend with a stricken expression on his face. Shisui smiled at them blindly. Come on, even like this, I can tell the face you are making. Don't look so worried, Itachi, everything will be fine. Itachi sadly took the eyes in his hand, drawing a seal on his arm with Shisui's blood and sealing it away immediately. Itachi summoned a crow and implanted Shisui's eyes into it, and he lowered his head respectfully to Shisui. I will carry on your will for the Uchiha. Shisui grasped Itachi on the shoulder again. From now on, you may be forced to walk down a long, dark path. One that is filled with pain and suffering. I have to apologize. Shisui's grip on Itachi's shoulder tightened, that I can't be there with you through it all. Still, I hope you don't falter from your path. And keep moving forwards as a leaf ninja. I believe in you and Naruto. That is why I'm able to ask you to carry on my will. Itachi had silent tears trailing down his face as Shisui patted his shoulder. Itachi grit his teeth tightly. Promise me to take care of Naruto. He will be alone. I know he's only a child, but I believe in him. He shall be the one to unite this world. He's special, and he will need love now more than ever. Shisui coughed even more blood, and his skin slowly turned pale. I will, Shisui. Naruto is my little brother just as much as Sasuke, Itachi promised and thought of how he could ever tell Naruto. Shisui laughed loudly. Despite his lungs screaming in pain, he ignored it to have the last laugh with his friend and brother. Last actions complete, Shisui was relieved. He let out a short sigh. Don't stop me. With those final damning words, Shisui smiled and stepped backwards off the cliff, disappearing into the raging waters of the Naka River silently. Shisui! Itachi shouted, reaching for Shisui's hands, only to fall short by inches. The figure of Shisui disappeared in the darkness. Itachi's Sharingan changed, taking the form of a three-blade shuriken. Naruto. Smiling, he had just finished the academy for today. Naruto rushed outside, the courtyard buzzing with people. The parents had come to take their children home. At the same time, Naruto waited for either Shisui or Itachi to come. Naruto felt the wind blowing against his face as a hand touched his shoulder. Turning around, he smiled, seeing Shisui in front of him smiling. Naruto was surprised that he hadn't felt his chakra coming. Naruto, is time. Naruto looked confused. His eyes glanced, but he couldn't see Itachi anywhere. Time for what? He stopped mid-sentence as Shisui kneeled and hugged him. Naruto immediately returned the hug but couldn't help but feel cold. Shisui, are you, Naruto? Promise you will live a long life. I never said it, but you're like a little brother, and your family to me. I have come to say goodbye. Take care of Itachi, Shisui whispered in his ear. Naruto felt his body start breathing heavily. He wanted to shout, angry, why he was talking like that. OJ Naruto, the blonde turned his head to see Shikamaru looking at him with raised eyebrows. You alright? Naruto turned his head to look at Shisui but saw no one there, and his senses couldn't detect him anywhere, his eyes desperately trying to see him anywhere. The wind blew again from behind his back as leaves flew high in the sky. The blonde felt a pain on his chest, his heart beating on his chest, almost popping out, unshed tears on his eyes, his hands shaking. He kept trying to catch his breath, his hands in front of him, not feeling the warmth. I know what you go through, Naruto. I lost my parent at a very young age. I don't even remember them anymore, but you have me, Naruto, and I will do anything to protect my little brother. Shisu. Shisui. Itachi. Tomorrow. Itachi walked inside the secret meeting of the Uchiha clan, his eyes roaming around the large room where the hidden stone of the Uchiha clan stood. His father stood in front of the stone, looking down at it. No one else was in the room. Itachi knew what the stone said. His Mangekyo allowed him to read the secret text, and it sounded too good to be true. His thoughts were interrupted when his father turned to look at his son with a fully matured Sharingan. Itachi narrowed his eyes slightly, his muscles tensed, almost like preparing for a fight. He never believed his father would fight him, but one can never be too prepared. Itachi, I thought you were training Naruto. His father asked with a neutral tone, and he didn't look angry with him, much to Itachi's surprise. He said he didn't feel good, Itachi replied, knowing Naruto's true reason for not training this time. The next thing that happened shocked Itachi to his core. His father's Sharingan changed into a Mangekyo Sharingan. Suddenly everything around him changed. He saw Kurama with Sharingan destroying the village. His tails were destroying the Hokage tower. Itachi fell on his knees, breathing heavily, cold sweat running down his forehead. Will his father truly do something like that? No, he would not allow it. Raising his head slowly, his own Mangekyo Sharingan was on full display, but to Itachi's surprise, his father didn't even flinch from his new Sharingan, almost like he was expecting it. I didn't know you had it, father, Itachi said, still breathless. During the war, I lost my closest friend. And is better this way, Itachi. If people of our clan knew of my Mangekyo, they would force me to use it on Naruto. I had him in my house, at my table. I could have easily used it on him, but that's not what I want, Fugaku stated with a cold tone. Itachi, with you inside, we can take over without anyone. The only ones that need to die are the Hokage, and Danzo. With you we can do it without any bloodshed, his father said and stretched out his hand for Itachi to grab. Right now, Itachi was happy he hadn't told anyone about Naruto's Sharingan. He looked at his father's hand in front of him. He wanted to accept it. Uchiha clan was his family, but he closed his eyes and remembered her words. Itachi, I love you, and I know we will be together and live in a just world, Izumi said in his ear. He ran and ran as fast as he could, jumping from the tree as he approached the Uchiha compound. Naruto spread his senses as far as possible but couldn't feel Shisui or Itachi. He's not dead, he's not dead, Naruto told himself repeatedly, sweat rolling down his cheek. He felt cold, his whole body crawling. Naruto reached the compound, his body moved on his own. He found Shisui's house, bursting inside. Shisui, Naruto yelled at the top of his lungs, his eyes desperately trying to find him. Where is he? Here, where? Naruto understood he wasn't here. He jumped away, making his way towards Itachi's house. Perhaps he's there despite not feeling him or Shisui neither there. The sun shines on his face, red leaves flying towards the sky. He shielded his face from the leaves flying on his face. Reaching the door, he opened it. Itachi, Shisui, Naruto cried out, his eyes looking around when he heard footsteps, almost breathed in relief only to see Makoto walking downstairs. She noticed his pale face, his breathing quickening and not stopping. Where's Shisui and Itachi? Naruto asked immediately as she tried to approach and ask what was wrong. I don't know, Naruto, but what's wrong? Naruto didn't stay and immediately jumped away. He activated his Sharingan as he jumped at the top of a pole, his eyes trying to find them. Naruto swallowed a huge breath. Where? Please, where are you? Take care of Itachi. No, you're not dead. Where? Naki River. Naruto immediately rushed towards the river, knowing he, Shisui and Itachi had trained there many times. Reaching it, he looked around for any sign of Shisui. The trees everywhere around him, the sound of the river rushing in his ears. Shisui Shisui. No sign as he kept his Sharingan activated. Inside Kurama was silent, knowing what Naruto wanted to refuse. Naruto, shut up. Naruto yelled at his friend. Kurama always supported him. No, Shisui can't be dead. Naruto ran to the top. From there, he could see very far, his eyes searching around, nothing but trees and rocks. Shisui. Naruto turned his head downwards at the bottom, where the waterfall ended. He noticed something, jumping down, the tiny bits of water hitting his face as he reached the bottom. There he saw a body lying at the shore. Naruto swallowed. He felt his body freeze. He closed his eyes tightly, enough to hurt, his breathing rate increasing, his heart hitting his chest like a hammer, his hands and legs shaking. Naruto didn't know how, but he found himself walking towards it. Soon he reached the body lying on his belly, his right hand on the mud and his left hand still beneath the water. His hand moved on its own, rolling the body to face him. No, no, Nananano. No, no. Itachi, Ni-san, help. Kurama, you can help him, Naruto shouted, his hand touching his neck, desperately trying to find a pulse. Naruto, I'm really sore. No, shut up. He can't be. He promised. He can't be. Naruto fell on his knees. He closed and opened his eyes. Shisui still there. Big brother, please see. Naruto suddenly felt lightheaded, his entire body numb, everything covered in darkness, the last thing he heard. I'm sorry Naruto-kun. Itachi. After 2 days, night. It was just past dinner time when Izumi heard a quiet but firm knock at her door. A pretty smile immediately graced the young girl's features as she sensed a familiar chakra signature. For a moment, she had an internal freakout. This was so sudden. She certainly hadn't expected Itachi to show up out of the blue, not that she was complaining. What if she looked like a hot mess? Untying her apron and tossing it aside, she quickly made her way to the living room mirror. She examined herself thoroughly, ensuring that there was nothing in her teeth and that she looked presentable. Deciding she shouldn't keep Itachi waiting any longer, she ran her fingers through her long hair and smoothed out her clothes before going to answer the door. Itachi-kun, what brings you late? Are you okay? The smile that previously graced her features disappeared as she took in the object of her affection's appearance. Itachi was in full Anbu gear, katana and all. She hadn't been aware that he'd been assigned to a mission. What was even weirder was the fact that he'd stopped by to see her before leaving. The raven-haired man quietly stepped into her apartment and removed his mask, donning a carefully controlled and blank expression. However, Izumi had known Itachi for a long time. She studied him carefully, looking into his eyes. She saw the pain in those onyx orbs of his, and her chest constricted painfully. Something was terribly wrong. Shutting her door and taking a calming breath, Izumi offered what she hoped was a comforting smile. I can tell something is wrong, Itachi-kun. Talk to me, she said. He stood there for a few moments, still as a statue. Inwardly, two parts of himself were at war with one another. He had a mission to carry out. Tonight was the night that the Uchiha clan, except for his younger brother, were to be exterminated. Why did his father and his fellow clansmen have to be so damn foolish? As he gazed into Izumi's innocent and hopeful eyes, he was almost tempted to take her, Sasuke and Naruto and run someplace far away. Nobody had to die tonight. He could take his 2 little brothers and his lover. They could be happy together, the village and the clan be damned. You know that can never happen, Itachi thought bitterly. The Anbu captain had decided to begin his onslaught with Izumi, the woman he was well aware of harbored deep feelings for him. She was so sweet and innocent, completely unfit for shinobi life. Yet, She felt that she had something to prove and insisted on continuing to push herself. As twisted as it sounded even in his own mind, he had to her first to spare her. If nothing else, he wanted her last moments in the world to be painless and for her to never be traumatized. He almost released a bitter laugh, disgusted with himself. Trying to protect her, wiling her. How noble. Truthfully, Itachi wanted to tell her everything. He knew he could tell her anything, and she would never judge him, she would simply understand. Unfortunately for both of them, their fate was sealed. He knew that he couldn't put things off any longer, and he activated his Sharingan, his expression blank. "There's nothing to talk about," he said coldly, his voice wavering ever so slightly. Azumi's eyes widened in alarm as realization washed over her like a tidal wave. She thought back to the hushed conversations that Itachi and Shisui had when they thought she was out of earshot. Had things truly gotten that bad? Had communications between the village and the Uchiha broken down that much? She took a shaky breath, more out of shock than fear. "You're here to me, aren't you?" she asked calmly, no hint of accusation in her tone. Itachi swallowed thickly, trying to maintain his composure. "I don't expect you to understand, and I'm sorry." Tears stung at the back of her eyes, and she cursed herself for being so weak. She knew that there was no way she could fight him. Even if she could, she wouldn't. It was clear even to civilians that there had been tension between the village and the Uchiha for years. The optimistic side of her always believed that things would be resolved peacefully. As she took in Itachi's pained expression that he was so desperately trying to hide, she found that she couldn't be angry with him if she tried. She'd known him for years and knew that he despised the shinobi lifestyle and only wished for peace. She knew he had his reasons if he was standing in front of her like this to take her out. Her heart broke for him as she realized the pain and suffering he would endure for the rest of his days. Izumi released a breath she wasn't aware she'd been holding and bravely looked into Itachi's eyes. "I know that you wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't your last resort. I want you to know that I'm not angry with you. And that I love you," she whispered, unable to stop the tears from falling. Upon hearing her confession, Itachi closed his eyes as the weight of her words washed over him. Of course, he'd known that she loved him. It was evident in the way that she looked at him when she thought he wasn't looking and in her actions. Why she loved him, he had no idea. Yes, he was a skilled shinobi. However, he could never be what she needed. Izumi deserved someone who would fawn over her and treat her like a queen. He was a training machine and faced death and destruction daily. She was simply too sweet and kind to live that kind of life. Itachi realized that he wished he could be that man for her. The girl standing in front of him had wormed her way into his heart, and now he was seconds away from her. "I know," was all that Itachi said before opening his eyes and unleashing his Tsukuyomi upon her. Izumi looked around the grand ballroom and quickly realized that she was in an illusion. However, this genjutsu felt so real, so unlike anything she'd experienced before. She gasped as she felt a warm hand grasp her own, and she turned to find Itachi standing beside her with a gentle smile on his face. He was dressed in a tuxedo, and he looked as handsome as ever. She glanced down and discovered she was wearing a beautiful strapless white dress with intricate beading. Izumi felt tears well up in her eyes upon realizing that this was her wedding and nearly fainted as Itachi leaned in close to her and whispered, "I love you," in her ear. Suddenly she found herself in a huge room with a lovely view of the ocean. The room had an indoor jacuzzi bath and rose petals leading up to the most comfortable-looking king-sized bed she had ever laid eyes upon. "Is this my honeymoon?" Izumi thought with a blush. Her question was quickly answered as Itachi embraced her from behind. He leaned down and peppered soft kisses along her neck, and she shivered at the contact. She knew this was just a powerful illusion, but she never wanted it to end. She would embrace it for as long as she could. Turning in his arms and wrapping her arms around his neck, Izumi caught his lips in a fiery kiss. He backed her up toward the bed and made quick work of removing their clothing, his lips never leaving hers. He overwhelmed her senses, and she began to feel dizzy with desire. Just how long had she been dreaming of this moment? She'd dreamt of giving herself to him for longer than she'd like to admit. For a moment, she almost forgot it was an illusion. As he caressed every inch of her skin and brought her to euphoria, she let all thoughts and worries leave her mind. Time suddenly moved forward, and Izumi found herself sitting on a familiar park bench. It didn't take her long to realize that she was sitting in the park where she and Itachi played as children. Scanning the park for any sign of Itachi, she gasped as she took in the sight before her. The raven-haired man was holding a little girl in his arms, spinning her around as she squealed happily. A little boy that appeared to be a couple of years older than the girl spotted Izumi and ran towards her with a smile on his face. "Mama, come play with us." Izumi couldn't stop the tears of joy from falling. Once again, time moved forward, and she found herself sitting in a rocking chair on a front porch, a cup of tea in hand. Glancing next to her, she found an elderly Itachi right by her side. She gave him a smile, which he returned, and they talked about their lives and grandchildren. She knew that she was witnessing what were to be her final moments, and she couldn't have been more content. Growing old and passing on beside Itachi would be the perfect ending to her story. Later, in the following hours, silent screams echoed throughout the Uchiha compound. As he ran another one of his kin through, as he felt their blood splatter against his sword and clothes, he couldn't help but think that the stains would never come off his soul. No matter how spotless his clothes looked when he finished purging them of the blood of his comrades, his conscience could never be cleaned. It was on this matter of thought where he found his father, alone. It was as if he was being waited for. "Itachi, what lies behind this slaughter?" He waited before speaking again, but his twisted eyes spoke to him in the way his father never could, the Mangekyo Sharingan. "Are you going to show me a different future from the one I showed you?" Itachi's eyes were dead as he faced the man who raised him, knowing only one of them would walk out alive. Masked Uchiha. Elsewhere, while father and son faced a dangerous confrontation, the shadowy figure in the orange mask known as Uchiha Madara had his own part in eradicating the Uchiha. He was walking out of the now corpse-filled Uchiha police building, so easy, he thought when he felt a rush of cold around him. The masked man looked around when he immediately turned his head, looking at the moon. "I could have sworn I felt someone up there." The figure disappeared, leaving Itachi to deal with his little brother. Itachi. Itachi stared at the numerous bodies strewn around the streets. "This is the future I see for the Uchiha." Fugaku's warped Mangekyo eyes narrowed dangerously. "I see." Fugaku's calm demeanor belied what he was thinking on the inside, his mind racing. And he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Kage Bunshin. Itachi narrowed his eyes and thought. "This isn't good. Tu-san was the worst possible enemy for me. This is going to be a battle of Mangekyo Sharingan." He pushed the thought out of his mind as he traveled to his home, where he knew his father would be, along with his mother. A quick shunshin got him outside of the house, where he walked toward the door cautiously, watching for any traps or surprises. He was trying to discreetly check their bedroom for them when he heard a voice from the living room. His father's voice resonated throughout the dead silent compound. "Come inside, there are no traps. I will not participate in a death match with my own son." Itachi obeyed but kept his guard up. He walked in to have his mind blown. His parents were kneeling on the living room floor with their back to him. No fighting positions, no weapon in hand, not even a clenched fist. They were truly prepared to die. That's when the gravity of the situation hit him. Could he truly end their lives, the very people who fed him, clothed him, and were even prepared to die for him? For a cause they didn't believe in, just because he supported it. Itachi couldn't keep the sword from trembling in his hands as he stood behind his mother and father, tears rolling down his cheeks. His father's strong, commanding voice he would never see again cut through him sharper than any blade. "You've aligned with the other side," he responded, his eyes getting watery. "To-san, Ka-san." He was cut off by his mother's voice that held his heart in a vice grip. "We know, Itachi." His father spoke again. "Itachi, promise me one thing. Take care of Sasuke and Naruto." Itachi felt like he was being given his own personal type of torture as he couldn't hold back the tears anymore. His heart constricted tighter than he thought possible as his teary voice stuttered. "I will." Itachi readied his katana with a heavy heart he thought would simply give out because of how much pain he felt. His father spoke for the last time. "Do not fear. This is the path you have chosen. Compared to your pain, ours will be gone in an instant. Even if our philosophies differ, I am proud of you. You truly are a kind child." His silent sobs heard only by him increased as he drove his katana through their chests. While witnessing the aftermath of what he had done, he heard footsteps approaching the door. He recognized them as his little brother, Sasuke. He forced himself to look strong. The only way to escape this pain weighing him down like an anchor. He forced himself to stay silent after hearing Sasuke's yell, and as he heard, "To-san, Ka-san," yelled in fear, he stepped out of the shadows. "Itachi, you have to help, Ka-san and To-san are." When he heard no reply from the older boy, he repeated again, shakily. "Itachi, who could do this?" The raven-haired Anbu watched as horrifying comprehension settled into his brother's eyes as he saw the blood-stained katana held in Itachi's hands. As soon as those words left his throat, Sasuke felt a sting on his shoulder, and a shuriken embedded in the wall behind him. He looked down to see a thin line of blood under his ripped clothing and looked up in fear. "Wait a second, no." Despite their teary state almost in an instant, Itachi's eyes were now as motionless as a stone. He spoke in the cruelest voice he could. "Foolish little brother. I almost pity you. So weak." Sasuke's tortured voice ripped Itachi apart. Why did you do this?" Itachi spoke. "To test the limits of my ability." Sasuke was gripped with the fiercest anger he had ever been in his life at those words. "To test your ability. That's the reason you butchered every member of our clan. Of our family." Sasuke charged at Itachi as fast as he could, screaming, "You're out of your mind." As he went to strike Itachi, a swift punch to the stomach stopped him cold in his tracks. Saliva was forcibly ejected from his mouth as he stood, suspended on his older brother's fist. Removing that support sent Sasuke careening to the floor, face to face with his dead mother and father. It was then Sasuke started to sob uncontrollably. The volume is only matched by the booming sound of Itachi stepping toward him. He looked up in fear before realizing what he earlier had not. "I'm scared," he repeated again, audibly. "I'm scared." The younger Uchiha turned and ran out the door as fast as possible. His sobs echoed throughout the night as he screamed, "I don't wanna die." He kept running through the streets of the Uchiha district, hoping it wasn't empty for the reason he knew it to be. He kept running until the sound of Itachi's ninja sandal hitting the floor in front of him struck fear into every cell in his body. Please. Don't me." Itachi's hard voice answered him. "You're not even worthy. Foolish little brother. If you wish to me one day, foster your hatred and despise me. By all means, run. Cling to your wretched life. And when you have the same eyes as me." His warped Mangekyo Sharingan spun menacingly. Seek me out. In the following 2 words, Itachi had to gather up more resolve than he ever had to in his life. Mangekyo Sharingan. Sasuke yelled in agony as Itachi used his Tsukuyomi to force him to fall asleep. Only when he fell to the ground did Itachi release him from the clutches of Tsukuyomi. With that, Itachi disappeared and decided to visit Naruto one last time. However, he turned as he heard the sounds of 2 kunai racing toward him. After seeing it was Naruto. Naruto was silent, his breath stuck on his throat like a lump, frozen like ice, piercing his flesh. His eyes saw Itachi in front of him, but at the same time, he couldn't believe his own eyes. Why, Itachi, why? Naruto finally managed to ask, his Sharingan shining in his eyes. He focused on his answers, he would know the truth, and he would not let him leave until he knew it. Itachi looked at Naruto with pain behind his eyes. He didn't know why he was here and how. He made sure that he would be in the apartment this night. I did it to test my abilities. Itachi spoke with an ice tone. He needed to lie and hide the truth, but don't lie to me, Ne-chan. Naruto screams in return, tears streaming down his cheek. Itachi didn't know how Naruto could know he was lying. He knew Naruto could tell lies from the truth, but that wasn't what caught his attention. No. Itachi saw as the Sharingan in Naruto's eyes changed, his Tomo started spinning until finally, they created his Mangekyo Sharingan. Naruto, I need you to leave now, Itachi spoke with a commanding tone, his Mangekyo in his eyes. He prepared to use Tsukuyomi on him. Naruto suddenly spread his arms, his hands open, before Itachi could do anything. Kontaroru no Tensai. Suddenly Itachi felt a wave of cold wash over his whole body. He felt pain spread everywhere when suddenly it disappeared. Itachi's hand moved at his katana's pommel tightened to his back. What's this? He asked himself, unable to stop himself, as his body suddenly rushed towards Naruto, his katana pointed at his chest. No. Naruto closed his eyes, waiting for his fate as a single tear fell on the ground as a scream of despair echoed through the night. Dot, 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 dot. Naruto opened his eyes, feeling no pain. He saw the blade just inches away from his chest where the heart was. He saw Itachi's right eye bleeding. Suddenly, before anything could be said, the sky turned red, the moon changed color to black, the bodies of everyone disappeared, including Itachi, who turned into crows. What happened here? Naruto asked, knowing he was in Tsukuyomi. The crows suddenly came together in a single point. Itachi looked at his little brother, who was still waiting for his answer. I'm really sorry, Naruto. My clan wanted to take over the village. It was my decision, Itachi answered honestly. Naruto closed his eyes, trying to take it all in. A flash of Shisui's body hit him. What happened to Shisui? Naruto asked, his Mangekyo shining. Itachi gulped slightly. The last thing he needed was for Naruto to dedicate his life to Danzo, but he knew Naruto wasn't an ordinary child. Please, just tell me, Naruto pleaded. Itachi sighed, knowing his brother could tell if he was lying and his Mangekyo wasn't something he had accounted for. Opening his eyes, he told Naruto everything about that day, how Shisui had tried to use Koto Amatsukami, and Danzo trying to steal his eyes. When he was done, Naruto's facial expression didn't change outside, not even in the slightest, but inside he felt a burning fire. Later, Itachi returned back, gasping for air. Naruto suddenly fell on his knees. Naruto felt dizzy. He still wasn't sure what jutsu he used to do that to Nisan, but his chakra had dropped to almost zero. Itachi said something but Naruto could hardly hear anything at this point. Itachi left him alone as Naruto fell unconscious. Naruto. He didn't know how long he had been lying on the ground. His body slowly rose up, his legs shaking. He used a bit of Kurama's chakra to fully stand up and walk towards the house. Reaching the house, he walked inside. His eyes found her figure lying dead close to Fugaku. Naruto walked and reached her. His shaking hand touched her now cold cheek, his forehead touching hers. Her smile had disappeared. Ka-chan, please wake up, Naruto pleaded, moving her shoulder, but her body was as cold as a grave. Her skin had turned pale like snow, blood all over the floor. You can call me Ka-chan. The old Hokage moved as fast as possible towards the Uchiha compound, knowing what he would find there. Despite knowing that, when he landed inside the compound, his eyes widened at sight before him. The scent of blood was strong everywhere, and it smelled like iron. Crows had gathered and were feasting in some of the corpses. Many of his ANBUs, including Kakashi, looked as shocked as him, even more than him. Hiruzen closed his eyes at the massacre in front of him. Taking a deep breath, he left the weight of the situation to settle in his shoulder. Despite seeing with his own eyes, he still couldn't believe that it had gotten so far, leaving only one option. How many lives were lost today, and Konoha had just lost one of its most important supporters. One of the clans that founded Hidden Leaf along with the Senju clan. Check for anyone alive, Hiruzen ordered, his Anbu spread around immediately, checking for anyone still breathing, for any sign to indicate that someone was still alive. Hiruzen walked slowly around, observing everything in front of him, taking it all, his eyes checking the faces of the dead Uchihas lying on the ground. Some had scared faces, while some looked in peace, almost as if they died sleeping. Closing his eyes, he wondered what his sensei would think of this. Tobirama sensei always told him to do what's right for the village, no matter what is it, no matter how hard is it, the village always comes first. Yet, he felt that this could have been avoided and why he felt that this hadn't been the right course of action. Could he have done something more? What would you do, Minato? Hiruzen found himself asking, and he did not doubt that his successor would have been able to come up with a solution that didn't involving the whole clan. I should have been the one to seal the fox inside Naruto, not you, the third thought with eyes full of regret and his head slightly lowered in shame. He had thought of that many times since that day. I would be with my wife, and Naruto would grow up with love. Not hatred, Hiruzen thought, remembering the face of her wife, her last words. I will return once Kushina gives birth. We will have another grandson to spoil. Hiruzen escaped his thoughts. More people suddenly landed. Hiruzen straightened up himself only to be greeted by his old teammate, who had a neutral face, but his eyes filled with something else entirely. Hiruzen saw Danzo show up followed by two masked Anbu, probably his personal Anbu. Hiruzen thought with a frown on his face, his eyes narrowed at the two Anbu. Kakashi looked at the bodies with dread. He hoped he wouldn't find Itachi here. As he rolled around another dead Uchiha, this one wasn't Itachi either. Yugao suddenly asked what everyone was wondering after silence had taken over the Anbu group, her tone filled with anger and sadness. Who could have done this? She asked as he glanced at every Anbu near her as if asking what they thought, who could have been behind all this? Many either shook their heads or just shrugged their shoulders, not knowing the answer and not coming up with any person that could be behind this. Kakashi wasn't sure how to answer. If this was the work of an outsider, they could come back one day and slaughter another clan. His body almost flinched at the thought, but that sounded far-fetched to the Anbu but not impossible, or the other option, they had a traitor amongst them, lurking around in the shadows. Yet Kakashi couldn't think of anyone to do this. Uchiha had been extra wary of anyone outside of Uchiha clan. Kakashi remembered when he visited Obito's old home the last month with Guy. His friend hadn't noticed or perhaps acted oblivious, but Kakashi had seen the clear dark looks at their direction. They were so intense that for a moment Kakashi had thought they might attack. Kakashi escaped his thoughts when he heard Danzo state. It was Itachi Uchiha. Danzo suddenly announced to everyone. Every shinobi froze from that piece of information except the two Anbu near Danzo. Why? It doesn't make sense. Kakashi finally spoke after everyone had fallen in silence. Uchiha Itachi despised his clan. Danzo answered. Kakashi could tell the man was hiding something, but it wasn't his job to ask questions. Kakashi felt his breath stuck on his throat. Why would Itachi do this? He had worked with the kid, and he looked normal. As far as he could tell, he didn't look like someone who enjoyed it during the mission and looked like someone who held his family in a high pedestal. Had he been able to hide things from me? Kakashi found himself asking, slightly perplexed and his thoughts filled with sadness. Obito's clan was gone. Then he remembered how close Naruto had been with the Uchiha clan, how he called Itachi big brother. Kakashi felt a pit on his stomach. How could he ever tell that to the little blonde? It will destroy him. The silence took over the place. No one said anything when Hokage-sama, we found one alive, and Anbu shouted, holding a child in her arms. To the hospital now, the Hokage ordered with a booming voice before turning fully at his old friend, who didn't look fazed by his intense glare. Before Hokage could utter a word, a massive explosion happened near them. The wind waved past, almost making them stumble. The debris fell around them as everyone's eyes turned to look at the explosion, but the chakra spreading right now made them all almost freeze in fear. Kyuubi, the Hokage murmured with dread under his breath as he walked forward. Kakashi was about to go closer when they saw a red figure slowly walking out of the smoke. The figure looked small, but the red chakra shone through the smoke, and a tail. Revealing itself, stood Naruto with red eyes. His whiskers had grown, a red chakra cloak spreading around his body, his cheeks swollen, tears still in his cheek, his pupil looked slit, skulking towards them, and a black ball was standing behind him. Naruto, Kakashi murmured, not believing he was here and influenced by Kyuubi's chakra. No, he would not let him lose control. At that moment, Naruto let out a huge roar. The wind from his roar alone caused many to shield their faces. Naruto was on his four limbs, and three tails spread behind his back. Sarutobi was ready to act and knock him unconscious when tears started rolling down Naruto's cheek, as for a moment, he looked angry, sobbing yet in control. Hokage-sama, why is my family dead? Naruto shouted with sadness and anger, his nails scratching the ground below his hands. Hokage didn't respond. He knew whatever he said would not make things easier for his surrogate grandson. Naruto needed to be stopped before things got worse for him. However, he didn't understand why he was here. Itachi informed him that he would make sure Naruto was in his apartment this night. On the other hand, Naruto kept trying to get rid of Kurama's chakra around him, but all he could see and hear in front of him was his mother saying that he could call her mother, Itachi, and Shisui's smile, the promise of his big brother. And he remembered all the glares, all the hatred this village had brought to him, all that pain. Naruto, you need to calm down, now. Think of your brother. Shisui would have wanted you to be happy, Kurama shouted in his head, hoping that his talk could calm down the little kid. Naruto felt tears rolling down his cheek at the mention of Shisui. You're my little brother, and you're my family. Take care of Itachi. Naruto's head lowered, touching the ground, his breath stuck on his throat, feeling that he couldn't breathe, his hand fist, his palm bleeding as the Hokage saw this as the perfect opportunity to knock him down. Rushing at him, one hit, and the little kid stopped moving. Naruto stood motionless. As the red chakra went away, any sign of Kyuubi's chakra was gone. Hokage breathed a sigh of relief as he looked down on Naruto with sadness, knowing the kid had lost as much as Sasuke. He turned at Kakashi and gestured to take Naruto away. Kakashi complied without saying a word, taking him in his arms. The Anbu glanced at the kid in his arms before he jumped away. Hiruzen turned to look at his old friend and then walked over to him Danzo, who stood still, his eye narrowed at Hiruzen with a glare. We will talk about this in my office. Perhaps you have gained too much liberty Danzo. Hiruzen spoke with a low, threatening voice that sent shivers down his spine. He almost flinched but didn't allow himself to show weakness or any emotions in front of his weapons. Walking away, Danzo observed the dead compound with glee behind his eyes when one weapon showed up to his right, kneeling in front of him. Danzo-sama, we counted the dead, the numbers don't match, he reported. What? Danzo turned fully at him with a higher tone, and his knuckles tightened around his cane. He wondered what could have happened when he felt the air around him turn dense and cold. His eyes turned to look at his left, seeing Mangekyo Sharingan behind his mask. I witness everything. If you dare as much as touch Naruto or Sasuke, I will leak valuable information to every enemy village, Itachi promised as his body turned to crows. Damn you! Danzo cursed as his hands were more tightened than ever before. Hokage office. Every clan head, every one of the civilian council was called in this meeting. The sun still hadn't risen over the horizon, the darkness covering the Hidden Leaf village like a cold blanket. Everyone was talking amongst each other, not knowing what this meeting was all about. Shikaku noted that the elders of Konoha were extra quiet. Danzo was usually always silent, but the same usually didn't go for Homura and Kaharu, who were just as silent as Danzo. People asked what was happening, but they stood as silent as the grave. Shikaku knew they knew something but didn't ask. His friend Inoichi seemed to have noticed his glance at the elders. Sadly, some were discussing why they felt Kyuubi's chakra. Many apparently had woken up afraid that the Kyuubi had returned, but thankfully the intense chakra had disappeared as soon as it appeared. The Hokage finally walked inside. His eyes looked tired, face pale like a ghost. Dun gasped at the condition of their Hokage. Everyone stood up when he entered. Hiruzen gave almost everyone a look before sitting down, followed by everyone else. Now, you might be wondering why I have called such a sudden meeting so late. Hiruzen spoke as everyone had fallen silent to hear him. A treason has happened. Everyone grimaced at the mention of treason, everyone holding on to their breath, waiting for the Hokage to continue. Uchiha Itachi hazed every member of the Uchiha clan except his little brother Uchiha Sasuke. Hiruzen finished, and everyone fell silent once again. The air felt as coldness night of winter. One could cut the air with a knife. Shikaku's eyes almost popped out from what he heard. He wondered why the kid had done it. He had seen him a couple of times. He didn't personally know him, but his eyes didn't look like that of someone who could do something like that. Inoichi frowned and looked just as confused and surprised as his teammate, and he wondered what would the poor kid do now without his family. Choza had stopped eating. His chips fell on the table. He wondered if the Kyuubi had anything to do with this. He had felt a sudden chakra spike of Kyuubi. Even Hiyashi's eyes widened at what he heard before they narrowed. He hoped Itachi had been captured and not let roam freely around the village. The last thing he needed was him attacking Hyuga clan. Sum fell silent at the information she was hearing, which was something new to her. Usually, she was the one who talked the most in the council. Finally understanding the weight of the situation, the whole council went in an uproar. Hokage-sama, how could this have happened, and why would Itachi Uchiha do this? Shikaku asked. First, his voice was still calm despite the situation. Hiruzen closed his eyes for a moment before turning his sights at Shikaku. The third explained what had happened and that Itachi had left the village before they could capture him. He also ordered Itachi to be branded as S-rank missing nin in the bingo book. After hearing the devastating news, many felt pity for the Uchiha kid who had been spared. Thankfully, the whole talk about the Uchiha clan had made many forget about the Kyuubi chakra that had been felt around the village. Leaving the meeting, Hiruzen reached the top of the Hokage tower overlooking the whole village. At this hour, streets and houses would be silent, a few lights here and there, but now the entire village was awake, mourning for the death of the Uchiha clan. As he kept looking at the village, he heard a sound behind him, not needing to glance behind. The mission has been successful, Hokage-sama, Itachi spoke, kneeling in front of the Hokage, his voice low and neutral. Itachi, you do understand now that you're a missing nin, your brother will grow up hating you, where will you stay? Hokage consoled. I have been given an invitation to join a group called Akatsuki. I can spy from within, Itachi answered with the same neutral tone, looking down at the ground. In that case, Hokage threw a scroll at Itachi, who grabbed it and gave the Hokage a confused look. If you happen to meet Jiraiya or Tsunade, just show them this scroll, and they will know not to attack you. Hiruzen spoke, knowing he could not do much else to help. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Please take care of Naruto and Sasuke in my stead, Itachi almost demanded before disappearing. Later, Hokage stood in his office, waiting for the report, and Anbu suddenly appeared in front of him with a document in his hand. The list Hokage-sama, the Anbu Kakashi, spoke, giving the list of every dead Uchiha. His eyes glanced at the pictures of the past Hokage before turning back to look at the old one. Thank you, dog, Hiruzen said and opened the documents. They showed detailed information of the wounds of every Uchiha, their names, and where they had been found dead. Reading through the names, he reached Fugaku Uchiha, and his eyes widened. What's this? What do you mean? Fugaku's eyes were missing. The old Hokage shouted in fury. The power resonated from his voice alone caused the desk in front of him to break along with the floor below his feet. Kakashi grimaced from the power of his cage. Hiruzen stood up, demanding an explanation right now, his face furious. Kat reported that he found his body inside his house, what was left of it, close to Makoto Uchiha, shortly after Naruto was sent away to his apartment, but we found no sign of struggle. We believe whoever took his eyes did while he was dead. It must have been Itachi, Kakashi reported almost in haste, his mouth speaking fast. The Hokage narrowed his eyes. He knew at the time Danzo was close. He wouldn't dare to do that while his Anbu were everywhere around the area. If he did try, he would have tried when his dead body was sent to the morgue. Itachi would have never done that, and he cursed himself for not having this information when Itachi spoke to him to report the mission. You can leave, Hokage ordered. Kakashi said nothing but left, slowly making his way towards Naruto's apartment, knowing the kid needed someone at this moment. Hiruzen ordered for Danzo to be brought here. The time has come for them to talk, a long conversation. Naruto. Where am I? Am I dead? Whispered Naruto around the void hoping for someone to answer him. A part of him slightly hoped he was dead. He just wanted to hear a voice that would tell him anything. He believed himself to be dead, but was he truly? Then a voice cut through the air like a knife through butter. You're not dead, not yet. Naruto turned to see Uchiha Madara slowly walking towards him. A thin light illuminated his armor and face, his Sharingan on his eyes. Why am I here? Naruto asked no one in particular. His body sitting on the ground, his legs spread, and his hands grabbed his head as flashes of the massacre. No, Naruto kept repeating as he remembered Shisui. Take care of Itachi. He remembered Makoto-chan. You can call me Ka-chan, Naruto-kun. He finally remembered his Nei-chan. You're my little brother Naruto, take care of yourself. Madara watched in silence as the first stage of Susanoo, a cage, grew around him, but he noticed something strange. The bones had chains tightened around them everywhere. Why? Why? Naruto shouted, hitting the floor with all his strength, his voice echoing throughout the whole darkness around them. Madara walked over the young Uchiha. Despite being known to be ruthless and without emotions, Madara knew what it was like losing a brother. This is the world, young Uchiha. This is a world full of injustice, wars, and wars. They never stopped unless they're afraid to start it. Madara spoke from experience, knowing people of this world craved for war. Wake up to reality. Nothing goes as planned in this cursed world. The longer you live, the more you realize that the only things that truly exist in this reality are merely pain, suffering, and futility. In this world, people don't get what they wish most, and that is a fact. We are subjected to the whims of this reality, that is filled with suffering and hatred. When there is light, there is also darkness. One cannot exist without the other. This world is full of pain and futility. Those are the only things that exist in this reality, uttered Madara. There are only winners and losers in this world, along with the selfish desires to create a lasting peace, but there can be no peace when the world is flooded by rage. The selfish desire for peace will only be temporary. War will rise, hatred is birthed from the protection of love, and more hatred will follow after it like vultures. Everything I have said is nexuses, bound together by an unbreakable chain that keeps adding on to its links. The chain cannot be broken, for we all wear it. There is nowhere to break the chain, normally. What you say has some truth to it, muttered Naruto as he looked away from Madara. I hate this world. I loathe it with every cell in my body. This world is hell, and I have been condemned to live in it. Only the powerful decide the fate and not the weak. Without strength, you will become a slave to those who are. I have cheated death too many times to know that I am strong enough to decide my fate, but still, I'll be dead soon, for immortality doesn't truly exist. But even still, the strong can only do so much compared to the world's power. Time is every man's enemy, for it devours all things. Nothing remains afterward. I despise this world with all my being. That's why I want to change it. Change what has been fated for this world, announced Madara. Naruto fell silent, his Mangekyo Sharingan shining in his eyes. Madara didn't hide his surprised face. He had never seen a Mangekyo like this one. He wondered what power was hidden behind it. You told me this world is war. People will keep fighting because if one thing history taught us is that people will never learn, they will repeat their mistakes. The time is a wheel unless someone strong enough destroys the wheel, someone that will people both love and fear. Reason why selfish and greedy people follow the rules is because of fear, but those that have no fear that break the rules will always exist, and the war will spark once again. I will unite this world, and I will become the man they will love and fear, love my compassion and fear my wrath, Naruto finished. Madara stood silent at his words, but people don't live forever. Even if Naruto reached his goal, he would one day leave this world. Who would make sure the wheel stood broken once he left this world like billions of people before him? Madara decided to see where this road would lead the young Uchiha. After all, his work was to guide him. He stood motionless. The woman in front of him shined like a bright light at the end of the tunnel. Who are you? Naruto asked, stuttering, barely holding himself from breaking down. Her chakra felt so familiar, and her face. Naruto knew he had never seen her ever before, and yet she felt so familiar. Her presence alone was warm and welcoming, her smile sweet and gentle. Minato-kun told you nothing of me, she spoke with a kind tone, her smile beaming like a sun in a dark night. Naruto felt tears almost falling down from his eye, and his head slowly looked downwards. It was shame, Naruto didn't know. I guess he wanted me to introduce myself, not ruin the surprise. I'm Kushina stopped as Naruto threw his arms around, crying on her shoulder. I have wanted to meet you for so long. Naruto kept crying, Kushina patting his back, kissing his cheek. Her son had grown from the baby she saw the first time. I'm here, my son, she spoke sweetly. Her tone reminded him so much of Makoto-chan. It was the same tone she used whenever she talked with him. After minutes of silence, Naruto slowly pulled away, not daring even to blink. He was sure this was a dream and thought if he blinked, she would disappear, and he would be alone again. Let me look at you, she said, grinning, her finger on his chin, her violet eyes looking at his face from every angle, her eyes analyzing every part of his face. You have your father's eyes and hair, but your cheekbone and everything else is all mine, she spoke happily, giving Naruto another kiss but noticing her son had been quiet and was even avoiding her eyes. Kushina kneeled on the floor, her finger touched his face looking down at his feet, looking up again, Kushina saw tears rolling down his cheek, Naruto swallowing and trying to hold them back. What's wrong, Sochi? She asked, concerned and making him lean closer to her. I failed Ka-chan. I. Kushina stopped him from talking. She hugged him close, heartbroken for her little boy. She was only 6 years old and yet so much weight under his shoulder. You haven't failed anyone. It is not your fault, she spoke in his ear, caressing his hair, hoping to convince him that everything that happened was not his fault. Naruto shook his head in denial. If only he had been stronger, if only I could have been stronger, Naruto said to himself. He would never allow his family to die, he would have done something to prevent it from happening. Naruto stood silent before he backed away and looked at his mother. A part of him still couldn't believe she was here. How are you here? Naruto asked with a small smile on his face. Minato-kun, he sealed a small part of my chakra in your seal so that we could talk. I always wanted to meet you, my little sunshine, she spoke smiling, knowing she couldn't be here with him for that much longer. Naruto stood silent as he felt a wave of happiness. Last time he felt like this was when Makoto-chan told him he could call her. Naruto shook his head as if trying to shake away that memory. He couldn't think of her right now. Deciding to ease the tension between them, Naruto smiled brightly at his mother. Ka-chan, I always wanted to ask, how did you meet Tu-chan? Naruto said smiling, his eyes shining like a sun again. Kushina smiled, happy that her son wanted to know about her. A part of her had always been afraid that Naruto would be angry and maybe even hate her, not that she could blame him if that were the case. A parent's job was always to take care of their children, yet I have failed Naruto, from the very beginning, Kushina thought, her face turned into a frown. Ka-chan, you alright? Naruto asked, concerned he had asked the wrong question, but her mouth just smiled and rubbed her hair in embarrassment. Nothing, my Sochi, just lost in thoughts and memories, she answered, stating that she wasn't angry with him. Naruto was waiting for his mother to begin the story of how she met and fell in love with his father. He was slowly growing impatient when she finally began to speak. I moved to Konoha when I was still very young. Minato and I were still just kids. The first time I saw your father, I thought he looked like a flaky girly boy, not someone who I would take as a serious ninja at all, Kushina said with a joking tone. You're kidding, right? Naruto asked, knowing his father had become the Yellow Flash. No, I'm not, but what did I know? I was a young girl who didn't know anything about boys or about being a ninja at all, for that matter, Kushina answered with a giggle. Well, I guess he proved you wrong in the end, huh? Naruto said with a smile, his hands behind his head, listening with all of his attention. Indeed he did. Since I was the new kid, I wanted to make an impression on my first day at the academy. I wanted everyone to remember me. So when they asked me what my dream for the future was, I yelled, I'm going to be the first female Hokage. Kushina said, letting out a loud laugh at the memory. Naruto laughed at her first choice of words, becoming the Hokage. Naruto saw himself perhaps wanting the same, but he wanted something much different. Kushina noticed the sudden new face of Naruto. His eyes glanced at the moon and sun symbol on his palms, flashes of the last night still fresh on his mind. He wondered if the pain would ever go away. Looking up at his mother once again, his face beamed again, and he gestured for her to continue. Kushina wanted to ask if she could help but decided to continue the tale since her time was running out. If Naruto was paying more attention to her chakra level, he would notice her chakra slowly lowering. As you may have guessed, the people in the class didn't like the new kid who wasn't even from their village talking about becoming Hokage, and the boys started making fun of me all the time. They called me Tomato, Kushina said with a hint of melancholy and anger on her tone. Tomato. Sure, you have red hair, but you certainly don't look like a tomato to me, Naruto said, looking at her red hair. Naruto couldn't help but love the color of her hair. Well, I did back then. I had a very round face and with my fiery red hair, well, even I had to admit that I looked like one. And it infuriated me, the redhead said, still laughing slightly at the memory. So, did Dad stand up to the bullies for you? Naruto asked, thinking of his father standing up to protect his mother. Nope. He just stood there watching. Perhaps he himself didn't want to get in trouble, or maybe he was afraid of me, or maybe didn't care, but they kept bullying me, so I showed them myself. I beat all of the bullies half to death. Since that day, people knew from my new nickname. The Bloody Habanero, Kushina said with a small smile, her fist slowly raising, veins almost popping out of her fist. I think I can finally understand why Shikamaru is so scared of his mom. They can be scary, Naruto said with a gulp, remembering Shikamaru complaining that his mother forced him to eat vegetables, and sometimes her eyes would look covered in shadows, making her both terrifying and creepy. He quickly recovered. So what did Dad say when they asked him what his dream for the future was? He asked curiously, wondering if his father had wanted to become Hokage from the very beginning. Minato said that he wanted to have everyone in the village acknowledge him and to become a great Hokage, Kushina said with dreamy eyes. To have everyone acknowledge him, huh? Naruto added with a hollow tone as he remembered his lost family. They had acknowledged him, Itachi, Shisui, and Makoto Ka-chan, maybe even Fugaku-sama, the way they smiled at him, the little gestures, and many other things. Kushina noticed it immediately and leaned closer, but he turned his face to her and smiled, an excellent goofy smile. What happened next? Kushina felt her heart breaking knowing she couldn't do much, how much she would give just to stay longer with him and not leave him alone all over again. When I heard what Minato said, I thought that a goofy-looking flake like him could never become the Hokage. There was absolutely no way it would be possible. But as I said earlier, what did I know? I was young. I looked down my nose at Minato. That was until a certain incident, Kushina said with a small shiver at the end. Incident? What happened? Naruto questioned, noticing the way her face lost color slightly. I've always hated my red hair. Until one day, thanks to Minato, I came to like it. My chakra is a bit special, you see. And the hidden cloud wanted it badly enough to kidnap me, Kushina said. Kumo huh? Naruto said, with no surprise in his tone. You don't seem too shocked to hear that they tried to kidnap me. Kushina said, slightly disappointed her story hadn't given out a stronger response from her son. Well, I have heard quite a few stories about Kumo's old habits of kidnapping anyone they think could be useful to the village, Naruto admitted remembering Kumo trying to kidnap the Hyuga heiress. Oh, have they changed now? Kushina asked with a dreadful tone. You could say that the new Raikage isn't bad, and his brother B-sensei gave me a few tips on how to control more tails without losing control, Naruto said, knowing he didn't know them well yet, perhaps when he grows up. Well, anyway, as I was saying, the old Raikage and the council sent a team of Kumo ninja to kidnap me. As they were marching me away, I pulled out my hair one strand at a time. I had to be very careful not to be seen. Konoha sent out pursuit squads immediately, but none managed to find me. As we got closer to the border, I started to give up hope of being rescued. But in the end, Minato was the only one who picked up my trail. He was the only one who noticed the trail of red strands. He rescued me from the Kumo ninja and carried me away. He said he noticed my beautiful hair right away as he held me. Suddenly he no longer looked like a goofy flake, he looked like the most magnificent shinobi ever. Like a man who would make all of my dreams come true. My bright red hair had led me to my soul mate. From that day on, I liked my hair, and more importantly, I loved Minato, Kushina said with a reflective look on her face. Naruto said nothing for a moment, thinking of what she said. He wondered if he should tell her about his involvement in Kumo trying to kidnap the Hyuga heiress, but decided against it since he didn't want his mother to yell at him for being reckless, not mentioning she would definitely get worried. You mentioned B, that means you know him? Kushina asked, interested remembering her own experience with the weird sunglasses man. Well, not really, I mean he and his brother, the Raikage stood in Konoha for some time. B spend every day with me, so yay I know him. What about you, how do you know him? Naruto answered. Well, Kushina said, rubbing her hair nervously. I beat him a few times, and somehow we became kind of like friends. Every time I beat him, Kushina finished with a laughing, remembering both B and Hachibi. Naruto wasn't sure what to think. If she knew Hachibi, that meant B must have gone all out and yet not win. He wondered just how strong was his mother. How were you able to defeat Hachibi? Naruto blurted out without thinking. Well, we of Uzumaki clan have chakra chains. They were an advantage against almost all attacks, especially Biju, Kushina stated, a golden chain coming out of her sleeve. Naruto couldn't help but wonder if he could do the same. How did you come up with my name, and which one decided? Naruto suddenly asked, wondering how they thought of his name. Jiraiya-sensei wrote a book, your father loved that book, and the main character's name was Naruto. After your father asked Jiraiya-sensei for permission, we gave you the name, Naruto, and he became your godfather, Kushina explained, waiting for a positive response from her son, but instead his face changed. Various different emotions flashed through his face so fast that even Kushina wasn't sure what Naruto was feeling. Still, the way his hands went from behind his head to his lap, his hands clenching around his knee, his teeth hitting against each other, his blue eyes turned ice, reminding her so much of how Minato's eyes turned when he was furious, especially one time when they fought against Kumo Shinobi. Naruto, she whispered and put her hand on his shoulder, his eyes still looking down on his lap, not making eye contact with her. Why has he abandoned me? Naruto breathed a huge breath, trying to calm himself. Kushina's eyes widened at his words. No, Jiraiya would never do that. What do you mean? He left Ka-chan. He abandoned me. He was there when he just left. He didn't say hi, he just left, Naruto almost shouted, but the gentle hand of his mother calmed him down. Kushina didn't know why or what to say to her son. Jiraiya always treated Minato as his own son, and yet, what if he doesn't recognize? No, that's not it. Naruto looks like a copy of Mina. Kushina's eyes widened at the realization hitting her like a sword. She remembered how much Jiraiya had mourned for Tsunade's brother, the way he talked about his lost ones, she understood. Naruto reminds him so much of Minato that she wasn't sure what to think of this. She had been sure if no one, at least Jiraiya, would be there, but he has left, leaving him alone against a whole village of people who hate him. What about Hiruzen-sama? He takes care of you, right? Kushina asked with dread, hoping her son said, yes, hoping her son wasn't truly alone. Naruto looked at her and explained that the Hokage just gives him money once a month and sometimes takes him to eat ramen, but nothing else beyond that. Kushina's face, crying, she should be there. Why is this happening? Why? Naruto hugged his mother, hoping to ease her pain. She stopped crying and just held Naruto close to her, after minutes of silence. Kushina suddenly felt her chakra going lower. She knew her time was running out. She took a deep breath and shook his shoulders slightly to gain Naruto's attention. I need to tell you about what happened on the night of the Kyuubi attack 9 years ago, Kushina explained. The night of the Kyuubi attack, Naruto repeated. As you know, I was not originally from Konoha. I came from Uzu. Konoha and Uzu villages had very strong ties to each other, Kushina said. Yeah, I know, the Senju clan of Konoha and the Uzumaki clan of Konoha were the best of friends. In fact, they were even distant blood relatives, Naruto added. The people of the Uzumaki clan were all blessed with astonishingly long lives. You surely know already of our clan's skills in sealing techniques and kenjutsu. The 4-element seal on your stomach was one of the seals from the Uzumaki clan. In fact, I taught Minato-kun a whole bunch of different seals, Kushina explained. I know all of that, but why did they pick you? There were many members of the Uzumaki clan that could take the role of Jinchuriki. Naruto said, remembering what his father told him. Well, for one, I was a grandchild of the current leader of the Uzumaki clan. Also, I was apparently born with a powerful chakra that was well suited to suppressing the Kurama. My predecessor is the Kurama Jinchuriki, was also a powerful female shinobi from the Uzumaki clan. I guess it was seen as appropriate that I take over for her. It's funny, her name was Mito Uzumaki, and she became the Shadaime Hokage's wife. And I ended up marrying the Yondaime, Kushina said. Yeah, I know about that. She became the first Jinchuriki during the fight between Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha, Naruto said. Kushina was surprised to know Naruto knew all of this despite being 6 years old. She wondered how he knew but decided to ask later. Yes, that's correct. From then on, Konoha took possession of the Kurama. And as Mito-sama neared the end of her life, I was brought to the village as the Kurama's new vessel, Kushina explained. They used you. Naruto yelled, standing up, angry at how they had made his mother the previous Jinchuriki. I had no idea why I had to move. And when I learned the truth, I was speechless. It had all been kept top secret. Only the Sandaime Hokage and the top village councilors knew. Only 3 people. I was suffocating under the pressure of being a Jinchuriki and the crushing loneliness that came with it. But then Mito-sama told me something that made me feel a whole lot better, Kushina said, hoping to ease the tension. What could anyone say that would make it better? Naruto stated, almost shouting. His Sharingan had activated on itself. If Kushina was surprised by his Sharingan, she didn't show it. She told me that, ultimately we were brought here to Konoha to become the vessel of the Kurama, but before the beast can be housed, we must fill the vessel with love. Do that, and even the host of the Kurama will live a happy life, Kushina said with a smile at the memory. You were happy as the previous Jinchuriki, weren't you? Naruto asked. Yes, I was. Thanks to Minato-kun and Mito-sama, I had a very happy life, Kushina answered. What happened to Uzumaki clan? Naruto asked curiously. Perhaps his mother knew more about it. Kushina sighed at the question. Despite being years now, she still felt sadness and anger about her homeland. Uzushiogakure was a beautiful place. Uzumaki clan lived there for almost 2 millennia. Soon after I arrived in Konoha, Kumo, Kiri, and Iwa banded together and destroyed my home. Kushina spoke, holding back tears, remembering her sister. She never saw her ever again. I'm glad you survived, Naruto said softly, leaning closer and kissing her cheek. Kushina laughed and kissed his cheek, already feeling better. I have another question. The Kyuubi attacked 9 years ago, and the masked man, controlling him. So how did he get control of the Kurama if it was sealed away inside of you? Naruto asked. I guess your father didn't tell you. It figures, he left most of it to me. I suppose Minato-kun must have had very little time. But you are right. That masked murderer had control of the Kurama when it attacked 9 years ago. But it was only moments before his attack that it was still sealed inside of me, Kushina said. What? How did he get it out? Naruto asked. I don't know how that masked man knew, but he did, Kushina said. Knew what? Naruto asked. He must have known that a Jinchuriki's seal weakens upon a full-term's pregnancy, his mother said, shocked and saddened. Hiruzen and his wife Bawako informed Minato and I that I would have to give birth outside of the village, and there would only be 3 people allowed inside with me, Kushina said. Outside the village? Why go to that much trouble? Surely the seal doesn't become that weak, does it? And not mentioning Kurama was a friend. Naruto asked, confused. It does. Sadly, the stronger the Biju is, the weaker it becomes. Despite Kurama being friendly, if seal became too weak, he still would come out even if he didn't want to, Kushina explained, her hand instinctively gripping her belly, remembering the day as if it were yesterday. I went to gather my things for the birth with Bawako. It was an uneventful apart from running into a good friend Makoto Uchiha, who had just given birth around a week earlier to her son Sasuke. I remember being so afraid of childbirth I just had to ask her if it hurt, but she didn't really help, and in the end Bawako dragged me away to stop me from revealing anything more about the birth. She gave me such a lecture about not talking to anyone, as well as not screaming when the contractions start. I remember Bawako lecturing him to watch the seal and not panic, and that this was the reason women have babies, because men can't handle the pain. If I wasn't in so much pain myself at the time, I would have probably laughed. Your birth went without complications, and I was finally able to meet you. I was so happy to see you, to be able to hold you finally. Minato-kun just couldn't stop smiling, Kushina said reflectively. So there were no complications with the birth. Then what went wrong? Naruto asked, dreading what his mother might say. Only moments after you were born that masked man showed up. He hated all of the Anbu that were guarding our location, and upon entering the room, he'd Bawako and the Anbu that was with her Taji. And what was worse, he had taken you, threatening to you if Minato-kun didn't leave me. In the end, that masked bastard attempted to go ahead with his threat, forcing Minato to leave me while my seal was still weakened. He, of course, saved you in the time Naruto, but had to act quickly to avoid the explosion from seals that the man placed on your blanket, Kushina explained. While Minato-kun returned you safely home, I was taken by that man, and he was boasting about how despite all of the safety precautions Konoha made to ensure Minato-kun would be able to protect me, he managed to separate us. He then activated his Sharingan and forcefully ripped the Kurama from my seal, Kushina said. Naruto felt his anger rise once again. The man was responsible for all of this, his chest burning like fire in anger. That masked man who seemed to have almost complete control over the Kurama forced him to me, saying that it was fitting for a Biju to its previous Jinchuriki. It almost got me as well, but Minato-kun arrived and saved me. He returned me to the place he had hidden you, Naruto-kun, so I could stay with you while he went back out to fight the man in the mask and, of course, the Kurama. Minato-kun then left me with you, so I do not know exactly what happened in the village, but I am sure that it was horrible, Kushina said. I do not know what happened, but from what I can gather, Minato-kun was able to defeat the masked man and remove the Kurama from his power, because the next time I saw Minato-kun, he was warping both of us to the location of Kurama. Minato explained that we needed to seal Kurama into you. Before being sealed away, Kurama promised to look after you. A small smile erupted on the blonde's face, at the mention of his friend. Mina-kun sealed Kurama using Reaper Death Seal, Kushina finished. So you just let him use me as the Jinchuriki? Naruto asked with a slightly hurt tone. Not really. I was damn against the idea, and to make you a Jinchuriki without even having a father was just unthinkable. I couldn't understand it at all. Minato-kun was sacrificing you just to keep the balance of the Biju between the villages, Kushina said. Well, what did he say to that? Naruto asked with a low voice, almost a whisper. He said that, turning your back on your country is the same as abandoning a child. That he made a promise to protect the village of Konoha and the land of fire when he became Hokage, and he couldn't just turn his back on those people. I still didn't like what I was hearing. Despite knowing Minato-kun truly believed what he was doing was right, I didn't want my son to grow up alone. But Minato said something that, in the end, I am glad he did because it meant that I was able to meet you. He said that, even if he lived, he could never substitute for me. There were things that you need to be told that he could never say. Even if I only have the briefest of moments to do so. And that the sealing wasn't so that I could see you again, it was so that you could meet me. A lifetime with a father could not give the same kind of love and affection as even 5 minutes with a mother. My last words to you were, don't be a fussy eater, grow up to be big and strong, make sure you bathe every day and sleep well. Make friends, it doesn't matter how many. Just make sure they're real friends, people you always trust and rely on, even a few is enough. And study your ninjutsu. I was never very good at it, maybe you will be. And remember to avoid the 3 vices of shinobi. Don't borrow money if you can help it. Save what money you earn from missions. No drinking alcohol until you are old enough, and as for women, I hope you find someone that makes you happy. Finally, remember who you are, find a dream, and don't stop trying at it until it comes true. And of course, I couldn't leave you without telling you how much I love you. Naruto, I am so sorry about what happened. We made you into the Kurama vessel, and I wasn't there for you while you were growing up, Kushina said while wiping a tear from her eyes. As his mother disappeared, the blonde felt nothing but loneliness. The bright sun that seemed to shine his face in the darkness slowly disappeared, the corners disappearing under shadows, darkness surrounded him everywhere. Naruto's dried tears on his cheek, his blue eyes seemed ice cold on the outside, his hands in front of his eyes, the blood of Makoto Ka-chan, he knew his hands were clean, no trace of blood, and yet he couldn't stop himself from seeing the blood, dark blood. He kneeled to look closely at something below him, seeing himself underneath, almost seeing himself in a mirror, yet he could feel the water below his feet, almost like standing in the ocean. His reflection looked different, with eyes he had never seen before. It looked like the Rinnegan, but it was red like blood, with 3 tomo in each ring. His reflection looked at him and stretched out his hand, almost inviting him to join him, to feel the power he could have, a power beyond anything. Naruto tried to feel something around him, yet he couldn't feel the fresh feeling of water, or the life deep inside the ocean, or any wind caressing his body. I'm a failure, Naruto whispered to his reflection. The memory of Shisui flashed in front of his eyes like a flash of light turning off and on. Protect Itachi. Naruto fell on his knees, His hands below the water slowly started sinking into the darkness, the dark ocean almost calling to him, to accept the darkness, to accept the reality, this world, what was the point of it? To join his reflection. His whole body started sinking below, the water ice-like cold and dark as a starless night. No moon to shine the road, no sun to warm him. Nothing. Half of his body sank until he felt a touch from above him, like a fire suddenly shining on his chest, calling to him. A hand grabbed his hand with the sun symbol, forcing him to see up towards the light. His blue eyes saw his Ka-chan, his Tu-chan, his Uchiha family, Kurama, everyone who ever loved him. Don't ever give up, my son, no matter how things might change, never forget who you are. His Tu-chan grabbed his hand, slowly helping him to stand up and not sink. My Sochi, I will always be with you in every step of your journey. You truly are a kind child. His Ka-chan grabbed his hand, his body almost rose above the dark water. Take care of Itachi. A family always sticks together. Shisui spoke with his goofy tone, a bright smile on his face, grabbing his hand, rising him further. Remember that family are the people who love you. Makoto Ka-chan spoke with a beautiful smile. She and Fugaku grabbed his hand as Naruto finally stood back to his feet towards the light. Opening his eyes, his right hand stretched out, the light hit his face, he squinted and put his hand in front of his eyes. He saw a small figure sitting close to his bed, slowly adjusting to the light. He moved away his hand to see the dog Anbu sitting close to his bed. Naruto wondered why he was here, and his eyes saw a white book lying on his lap, his head almost touching his bed. Naruto understood he had fallen asleep while reading. He tried to move his left hand when he suddenly felt a sharp strike his entire body, like a sudden surge of lightning. Don't move yet, Naruto, you went 3 tails, your body is tired, you should rest. Kurama suddenly spoke to him, smiling that Naruto didn't feel different to him, he felt the same Naruto. Naruto found himself smiling, a true one, his eyes almost watering. He had completely forgotten that he still had Kurama, he would never abandon me. Kurama, thank you for staying with me, Naruto spoke to his friend. He didn't know why, but he missed his furball friend's voice, the feeling almost made him forget about last night. I will always be here, Naruto, Kurama spoke with a proud smile on his face. Flashes of last night suddenly hit Naruto like a sword, blood on his hands, his Ka-chan, his big brother. No, number. Naruto grabbed his head tightly, desperately trying to stop this. He didn't want to think about last night, not now. A whimper escaped his mouth. Naruto heard a gasp. Opening his eyes again, he saw the Anbu was awake and looked at him. Naruto, of course, couldn't see his face behind his Anbu mask, but he could feel the positive emotions flowing through him like a river. Naruto was confused why this Anbu cared about him. It is not that the Anbu hated him, but they mostly were neutral when it came to the blonde Jinchuriki, but this one always felt sadness or happiness or a mix of both whenever he saw Naruto. Kakashi. Kakashi seemed to have noticed that he was actually staring awkwardly at the blonde. Naruto shot him a confused look. He straightened himself up, clearing his throat before addressing Naruto with a neutral tone, void of emotions. It's good to see you're awake, Naruto, you gave us all a good scare last night, Kakashi spoke. Thinking if Naruto actually remembered accessing 3 tails, the Hokage told him that Naruto was still too young to know about the Kyuubi, therefore if he indeed remembered it, Kakashi would either need to come up with a believable lie or Inoichi would intervene to make him forget that part of the night. How are you feeling? Kakashi finally asked, his tone warmer. He put his hand on the edge of his bed. Naruto eyed him up and down, almost as if trying to see if he was trustworthy. Naruto looked the other way when he was asked the question. Kakashi saw his eyes looking outside the window near him, almost as if he was trying to remember if he was alright or not. The Anbu couldn't help but wonder what the blonde was thinking. He knew what it was like losing family. His Ka-chan died giving birth to him, and his father. Kakashi shook his head, and this wasn't the time to think of the past. He needed to think of the future and Naruto. He needed to be there for him like Minato-sensei, Obito, Rin, and Kushina had been for him. Kakashi wondered what Naruto was thinking about when Naruto turned to look at him again with sad eyes, his eyes almost crying. Is the Uchiha clan G gone? Naruto asked, stuttering, almost afraid to ask the question. Kakashi wanted to confront the little kid, but he still needed to ask if he remembered the whole Kyuubi thing from last night. Kakashi still thought that it was simply a miracle that Naruto hadn't blindly attacked them. Despite having 3 taels worth of chakra, somehow he still held a bit of control, enough for the Hokage to knock him unconscious. I'm sorry, Naruto, but Uchiha Itachi'd the whole clan, Kakashi spoke, trying to sound strong for him. He hoped Naruto wouldn't focus his entire life on getting revenge, that road would never end well. Much to his surprise, Naruto didn't have much of a reaction from the outside. He grabbed his sheets tightly, almost tearing them apart. For a moment, Kakashi thought Naruto might access the Kyuubi's chakra again, but suddenly Naruto relaxed, his grip somehow relaxed. Instead, he just turned around to look at the window again. Silence took over the room, almost unbearable to Kakashi, who was about to ask what he remembered from last night, when Naruto suddenly turned his head at him. His blue eyes almost made him exhale. His similarity to his father was almost frightening. Can I go to their funeral? Naruto asked with a low tone, almost whispering. Anyone else wouldn't hear him, but Kakashi did hear him. Walking over to him, he put a confronting hand on his shoulder, giving him his famous eye smile. Of course, Naruto, the funeral will be tomorrow. I will come to get you, Kakashi said. Naruto smiled at him, as big of a smile he could muster right now. Naruto, what is the last thing you remembered last night? Kakashi asked with the same kind tone, hoping to ease any bit of tension they might have between them. Naruto didn't look surprised by his question. Naruto tried to answer and started rubbing his head, almost trying to remember something. I don't remember much. I remember seeing Makoto-chan lying dead on the floor. Naruto spoke with a hushed tone before turning to look up at Kakashi. That's the last thing I remember. He finished. Kakashi could see no lies and was glad that Inoichi wasn't needed to intervene. He released a sigh of relief he hadn't known he was holding. Very well. Rest here. If you need anything, I will be around, Kakashi spoke before vanishing. Naruto, seeing the Anbu leave, he glanced at the window outside again. Seeing the blue sky somehow eased the pain on his chest before he heard his friend again. Naruto, what is your plan? Kurama asked, seeing the Anbu had left. I plan to unite the elemental nations, whenever they like it or not, Naruto told his friend mentally. How do you plan to do that, or will you just force them into your will? Kurama asked, but Naruto shook his head, much to his relief. No, Kurama, I won't just go out there and tell them that I'm in charge now. The moment I'm strong enough, what I will do is that they will want me to be the ruler. They will see me as the best option possible. I will fox this world, create a better one than the one I was born into. But to do that, I need to get stronger and learn politics. I need to be smart, Naruto spoke mentally. He knew he was already strong enough to be a Chunin, but that wasn't his goal. He knew he could finish academy the moment the academy was open again, but he needed to get stronger without the bother of needing to complete missions, for now. Naruto kept talking with Kurama before he fell asleep again. He dreamed of his family at night, smiling at him. Tomorrow. The following day, Naruto stood along with what looked like the whole village of the Hidden Leaf, a new area that had been used to bury every Uchiha that died in the massacre of the Uchiha clan, as people had started calling it. Gray clouds had filled the sky. No sunlight pierced the clouds. Darkness had fallen over the Hidden Leaf. Naruto was wearing dark clothes. He didn't have them, but the Hokage had bought them for him, knowing Naruto wanted to attend the funeral. Holding flowers in his hand, Naruto thought back when he bought them. He entered the shop and was surprised to see the Ino girl from the academy at the counter reading a magazine. Naruto didn't really know her well. She sometimes would talk with Shikamaru and Choji when he was there, but nothing more than a brief hello. Ino glanced up briefly when she heard the bell ring before going back to her magazine before glancing back up when she recognized Naruto. Hey, what are you doing here? She demanded with a playful tone and with a light blush on her cheeks, leaning closer against the desk. Naruto noticed her sudden rush of nervousness and something else through her body. If it were any other day, perhaps Naruto would have stopped and smiled and maybe started a conversation, but this wasn't the day for that. Naruto looked at her confused. Getting flowers? This is a flower shop, right? Ino blushed more but nodded. She instantly went into gardener mode. What types of the flower do you want to buy? There are different types of flowers for a certain subject. Naruto gave the girl a sad smile. Love and loss. Ino's eyes widened when she realized what it meant and guided the blonde towards a bright pink flower with purple dots. This is a sweet pea. It represents goodbye to someone we love. Naruto nodded and picked a couple of them out. Ino led him to another part of the shop where the roses were and indicated a red and white rose. It's a symbol for love while the white represents silence and devotion. When Naruto had picked up a couple of roses, Ino led him to a row of orange flowers. These are marigolds, they represent death and grief. Naruto picked some of the flowers, and he took them to the counter where Ino told him the cost, which he promptly paid. May I ask who they were? Ino asked softly. Naruto smiled sadly. Family. He then left the store with his mind busy in thoughts. Naruto escaped his thoughts when people started putting the flowers in the graveyard. Naruto walked forward but couldn't help but feel the malice directed at him. Almost every civilian was glaring at him. It felt like swimming in a sea of anger and hatred, and he was in the middle of it. Naruto perhaps should have cared, but he found himself not caring of what they thought of him. They were stupid people. What they thought of him didn't matter to him. Stopping at Makoto and Fugaku Uchiha's grave, Naruto managed a small, sad smile. They had been buried together. Naruto felt rain pouring down on him, his tears mixing with the rain on his face, his hair not spiky, the muddy ground below his feet. Naruto heard many crying for the tragedy, some standing silent. Naruto thought back at the first time he visited Itachi's house, the dinner he had. The gifts from Makoto, his big brother Shisui. His flowers almost fell from his hands. Taking a deep breath to regain his composure, he kneeled down and put the flowers near the tombstone. Fugaku Uchiha, Makoto Uchiha, husband and wife, father and mother. Turning around, he started searching through the graveyard until he found the tomb of his big brother. Shisui Uchiha, friend and brother, Naruto murmured. He kneeled and gave a small pray for his big brother. Standing up, he started walking away. Many looked down on him, their eyes glaring down on Naruto. Naruto could hear what they said and felt about him, their words, their accusations, and what they always thought of him. Despite everything, he saved the Hyuga girl, yet people still saw him as the source of all evil. Did you hear? Some say the demon boy caused Uchiha Itachi to his clan. I knew he should not have been allowed close to a noble clan like Uchiha clan. What should we do? He has caused enough tragedy. What if he sets his sight on Hyuga clan next? Come on, don't you think this is a bit too much? He's just a kid. He's number kid. He's a monster. Why hasn't the Hokage him yet? Naruto said nothing as he heard the words directed to him. The shinobi side of people mainly were quiet. In a way, Naruto wanted to laugh at how stupid most people were. In a way, he was their punching bag. For every bad thing that ever happens to Konoha, he's to blame. Naruto said nothing to them, didn't even bother to glance at them. People like them were not worth the dirt below his feet. Naruto walked silently towards the memorial stone, the last place he would visit today before starting his extreme training. The memorial stone of Konoha held the names of every single man and woman who had died for their country. It was on this very stone that even the names of legend shinobi were carved into it. After a bit of searching, Naruto found his parents' names, Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina. He placed the flowers on the memorial stone and silently cried for his parents. He wondered if he would ever feel love again, like when his Uchiha family was alive, when his father had hugged him, when his Ka-chan. Naruto stood silent as he said a small prayer for them, hoping they were watching over him. The shinobi-only dango shop came into view, its traditional wooden facade a welcome sight. The sweet smell of dango drifted out, making Naruto's mouth water. As he pushed aside the shop's curtain and stepped inside, the server's face immediately twisted into a familiar scowl. "What do you want?" the man growled, crossing his arms. Naruto opened his mouth for a heated retort when movement caught his eye. A kunoichi sat at the counter, gracefully popping a dango ball into her mouth. Her purple hair was pulled back in a spiky ponytail, and she wore a tan overcoat that made her stand out from the usual ninja attire. "Oi, I asked you a question, brat," the server barked. The purple-haired woman's head snapped around, her sharp eyes narrowing at the server's tone. "Hey now," she drawled, a dangerous edge to her playful voice. "That's no way to treat a paying customer, is it? But Mitarashi-san, he's a student of the Academy of the Leaf," she cut him off, spinning on her stool to face Naruto fully. "And from what I hear, he's got quite the appetite. Wouldn't want to lose out on good business, would you?" The server's mouth opened and closed like a fish before he grudgingly grabbed an order pad. "What'll it be?" Naruto stared at the woman before scrambling onto the stool next to her. "3 sticks of Mitarashi dango, please," he chirped, his earlier melancholy forgotten. "Make it 6, the woman called out. "Put his order on my tab." "You don't have to," Naruto started, but she waved him off. "Name's Anko. Mitarashi Anko. And you're the infamous Uzumaki Naruto, right?" She grinned, showing slightly pointed canines. "I've heard all about your pranks. The one with the Anbu headquarters and the pink paint. Classic." Naruto's eyes widened. "You're not mad about that?" Anko threw her head back and laughed. "Mad? Kid, I nearly died laughing when I saw those stuck-up Anbu trying to maintain their dignity while covered in glitter. Takes real skill to get past their security too." The dango arrived, and Naruto cautiously took a bite. His eyes lit up at the sweet and savory flavors. "This is amazing. Not as good as ramen, but still." "Ah, a ramen fan, huh?" Anko popped another dango in her mouth. "Nothing wrong with having a favorite food, but variety is important for a growing ninja. You need proper nutrition to pull off those awesome pranks, after all." "That's what I was thinking," Naruto exclaimed between bites. "I want to be the strongest ninja ever, so I gotta eat right and train hard." "Smart kid," Anko nodded approvingly. "Tell you what. Since you've got good taste in both food and pranks, how about I show you some of the best food spots in Konoha? Places that don't turn their noses up at paying customers." "Really? You'd do that?" "Sure. Why not? Us outcasts gotta stick together," she winked. "Plus, I've got a reputation for being crazy anyway, might as well live up to it by corrupting the youth with good food and better pranking techniques. You'll teach me new pranks too. Naruto was practically bouncing in his seat. Kid, you haven't seen anything yet. Wait till I show you how to combine ninja wire, rubber bands, and food coloring. Her grin turned positively wicked. But first, finish your dango. Can't plot on an empty stomach. As they ate, Anko regaled him with tales of her own misadventures, each story making Naruto laugh harder than the last. Hey, Anko-san, Naruto asked as they finished the last of their dango. Why are you being so nice to me? Most adults just tell you to get lost. Anko's expression softened slightly. Let's just say I know what it's like to be judged for things beyond your control. Besides, her mischievous grin returned, you remind me a bit of myself at your age. Same appetite for trouble, same refusal to let the bastards get you down. Thanks, Naruto mumbled, ducking his head to hide the slight moisture in his eyes. Don't get sappy on me now, kid, Anko ruffled his spiky blonde hair. Save those tears for when I make you eat my special curry next week. Think you can handle it? Naruto puffed up his chest. I can handle anything. We'll see about that, Anko cackled, dropping some coins on the counter. Same time next week then. And bring your best ideas, I want to hear what other pranks you've got planned. You bet. Naruto hopped off his stool, practically glowing with happiness. Thanks for the dango, Anko-san. Just Anko is fine, she called after him as he bounded out of the shop. And kid, anyone gives you trouble, tell them you've got the snake mistress of Konoha watching your back. The server watched them leave, shaking his head. The demon brat and the snake's apprentice, what is this village coming to? A kunai thunked into the wood beside his head, making him yelp. I can still hear you, Anko's sing-song voice drifted back. Might want to work on that attitude before my next visit. The server quickly decided that perhaps serving the Uzumaki boy wasn't such a bad thing after all. Especially if it meant avoiding the creative vengeance of Mitarashi Anko. 1 month later, the training ground was eerily quiet in the pre-dawn light as Anko lounged against a tree, idly spinning a kunai around her finger. She told Naruto to meet her at 5 a.m., partly expecting the kid to sleep in. To her surprise, a flash of black appeared right on time, the young boy practically vibrating with excitement. Morning, Anko-sensei, Naruto called out, bouncing on his toes. Anko smirked. Drop the sensei, brat. Let's see what you've got before you start with formal titles. She straightened up, cracking her neck. We'll start with basic speed assessment. Try to tag me. Without warning, she flickered away in a burst of speed that most genin would struggle to follow. To her shock, Naruto's eyes tracked her movement perfectly. Not only that, but he immediately launched into pursuit, his small form moving with a grace that seemed completely at odds with his usual clumsy demeanor. What the hell? Anko muttered, actually having to put effort into staying ahead of him. The kid was moving at solid chunin speeds, his footwork precise and economical. No academy student should be able to. Her thoughts were interrupted as Naruto suddenly changed direction, using a tree trunk as a springboard to cut off her planned escape route. Anko was forced to substitute with a log to avoid being tagged, reappearing on a high branch. Not bad, brat, she called down, genuinely impressed. But let's see how you handle this. Her words cut off as multiple shadow clones burst from the underbrush, having apparently been created and positioned while she was focused on the original. More surprisingly, they weren't the usual Academy clone illusions, but solid shadow clones, a Jonin-level technique. What the actual? Anko breathed, before grinning maniacally. Oh, this is going to be fun. She launched a barrage of kunai, dispersing several clones, but more kept coming. The original Naruto emerged from the chaos, his hands flashing through seals at a speed that no academy student should possess. Wind style. Great breakthrough. Anko's eyes widened as she was forced to dodge a legitimate wind jutsu. Not only was it perfectly executed, but the chakra control required for nature transformation was well beyond academy level. Alright, time out, she called, landing in the clearing. The remaining clones popped out of existence as Naruto skidded to a halt, looking confused. Why did you want to stop? Was I not good enough? He asked, scratching the back of his head. Kid, you just moved at Chunin speed, used Jonin-level shadow clones, and performed nature transformation. That's way beyond. Okay, it's impossible. Spill. Now. Naruto fidgeted under her gaze. Well, I kind of had to learn to be fast, you know. With all the villagers and stuff. And the shadow clones, well, a friend of mine taught me. And the wind jutsu. I found some old scrolls in the library's restricted section, he admitted. The librarian doesn't really check what I'm reading as long as I stay in the corner away from everyone else. And with shadow clones, I can practice a lot more than normal. Anko stared at him for a long moment before throwing her head back and laughing. You're telling me you've been secretly training yourself using restricted materials, and no one noticed because they were too busy ignoring you. That's brilliant. Naruto's nervous expression melted into a hopeful grin. You're not mad. Oh, you beautiful little mastermind, Anko cackled. I knew I liked you for a reason. She ruffled his hair before her expression turned more serious. Show me what else you've got hidden up those black sleeves of yours. Over the next hour, Naruto demonstrated a surprising arsenal of techniques. Besides the wind jutsu, he had decent skill with water manipulation, though his control wasn't quite as refined. His trap-setting abilities were exceptional, likely honed through years of pranking, and his stamina was frankly ridiculous. Okay. New plan, Anko declared finally, sitting cross-legged in the grass. We're going to refine what you already know, and then I'm going to teach you some really fun stuff. But first, her eyes narrowed, you're going to tell me exactly how you've been learning all this without anyone noticing. Naruto plopped down beside her, his earlier nervousness gone. Well, it started with the library thing. I figured out pretty quick that if I ignored everyone, people would do the same instead of watching what I was doing. The restricted section has some really cool stuff. And the physical training ground 44 is great for speed practice. Naruto said cheerfully. All those giant creatures trying to eat you really motivate you to run faster. Anko choked. You've been training in the forest of death. By yourself. Only sometimes. The regular training grounds get boring, and nobody ever checks the forest.